Welcome to SoundBreaker. In today's episode, we're talking to Michael Gubman, who is a groundbreaker in the music tech industries. Thank you for joining us. And for our listeners who might not be for our listeners who might not be familiar with you, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you do?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, Bob.
My
Love the
pleasure.
podcast and happy to join. So my name's Mike Gubman, and I'm the CBO, Chief Business Officer at Supernova, and we are a innovation studio that helps companies inside the music tech space and beyond figure out where they're going next. That could be a new product launch, that could be a new line of business, that could be connecting with new types of customers, either business to business or business to consumer. And we've been doing that together as a product studio for about a year or so, with a lot of experience behind us. But love to see this space grow and excited to connect with more people in music tech as our industry continues to grow.
Great. I have plenty of questions. Just a quick thing. So you like the connect wire or the connection between the VC or the investors and the startup. Am I right?
Sometimes we do that in terms of helping raise capital. Other
Yes.
times the business doesn't necessarily need capital, but what they need is our expertise in building new product marketing, and in helping
Uh-huh.
them figure out how to go to market.
Okay, so you give them that kind of shaping. It's like, hey,
That's right.
you need to do this. Yeah, the shaping and the preparation to get out there and
That's
set up the
exactly right.
strategy to get it to the marketplace. Yes, got it.
That's
Got it.
exactly right.
Beautiful.
We have
All
experts
right.
in product marketing, product distribution, and organic and growth media.
So you the missing important puzzle, my friend. So you are definitely well needed in the industry. I'm gonna
Thank
end up
you.
coming to you. My Michael, can you take us a little bit back, if you don't mind, back in time, in your early teenage young days, and how did the whole music tech love developed, and how did you all start? If you can give us a little bit of background and history.
Sure. I've been doing this basically my entire life. When I was 11 years old, I heard about the term ethnomusicology, and it was like a lightning bolt went off, and it was said, "This is all I ever want to do with the rest of my life." And people may have heard that term. It really means the study of music, culture, and people all together, right? How do human beings create and enjoy music? And for me, starting way back then, this was the mid 90s, early 90s, uh, there wasn't really CDDB, there wasn't anything at that point. And so I started building my own music database as a kid. And I've basically
Hmm.
never stopped. And so in
Wow.
1997, I was really lucky. And as a high school student, I was one of the very first employees at a company called Mood Logic. The really old folks listening to this will remember it. But at the time, there were basically two companies putting music onto the internet. There was Liquid Audio, who has a lot of well-known alumni in still active in the music tech space, and another called Mood Logic. And we were some of the very first
Hmm.
people to start to codify music by mood, by genre, other information that is famous from the Pandora music genome, and really
Hmm.
start to put it up. And so every day, don't tell my teachers, but I was sneaking out of class, going to the computer lab, and for $1 a song, I would sit there and listen and codify I was the R&B guy at the time, and I was 15 years old. And that was my first job at a music tech startup, and it kind of kindled this love that I'm still riding today, of helping
Interesting.
people understand music, access music faster, figure out what makes sense for them from an automated recommendation standpoint, and just
Hmm.
continuing to share the love for music that I have deeply, and I believe most human beings have, whether they realize it or not.
The question I would ask just popped into my head. What's missing in the music industry? What's needed? We know that AI is a big influence right now. We're going to get into all of that technology and everything, in our great interview here. But just what's missing, like you've been at it when you were 15 years old, you were at it with metadata and information and all of that behind the scene, as they say. Now, behind the scene is no more the current, it's behind the scene in the computer, in the tech side of it.
So what's
So,
what's missing?
Yes.
Well, I think, at the core, music is such a central part of everyone's life. And I think in our modern sort of Western environments, it's
Yeah.
not necessarily valued in the same way that you might see in other cultures throughout time
You
and
think?
throughout space. I think
You
so.
think?
I think people enjoy music, they love it, it's an important part of their lives. But from a
Yeah.
business perspective, it's not valued the same way that other parts of media and entertainment are. And you can see that in the price that people are willing to pay for streaming music versus streaming
Hmm.
video or other
I
entertainment
mean, music
experiences.
became so international because of all the streaming platforms.
Sure,
Very international. Yeah. I mean, so the
but
culture
look at
kind
the
of it's all
yeah,
together now.
but look at the way that a service like Spotify or Apple Music is able to price their product versus the way that
Yeah.
a product like Netflix is able to price and continually raise their pricing. Look at the cost to go see a film versus the cost and the margins on something like a concert. Look at the way that artists who make music
Well,
monetize their work
yeah.
versus other mediums, and you'll see that there's a wide discrepancy in value creation.
Well, I mean, we don't want to take away anything from the creative arts and creative artists in both sides of the equation, I would
Sure,
say. But how much, and how long would it take to make a movie? You're
sure,
talking minimum, like I'm talking about independent, some of the good independent in the millions. Anything beyond that, studio, we're talking 50, 200, 100 million, 300 million a year worth of work, 2 years worth of work. And then, yes, but also look how many valued high end, how should I say, or legit. We're not taking the credit from any streaming platform, but which one is the top five film platform or the top four? You got Netflix, you got Hulu, you got Amazon, you got Tubi. Who else you got? I'm sure I'm missing a couple of more.
sure. There's many of them. I think
But
it.
you
Yeah,
can really count the big ones. You can count them in one hand. Disney Plus, I think, isn't, So what about five, six, five? Like the major labels, you say five, I would say platforms. But how many recognized music platforms? Oh my God, it's about a ton of them.
sure. So there's a lot of
Ton.
competition at that level in terms of delivering music and video content to consumers. I think when I think about it, I'm focused on the fact that the average musician, according to U.S. economic surveys, makes
Yeah.
around $14,000 a year, and in many cases that's the average, and so most people are making less, and that's not a livable wage here in the United States. And when you look at that relative to other parts of the entertainment
Yes.
industry, it's
Yeah.
so much lower. And so really my concern is how can you create great art if you're struggling to live?
How many songs are being released on Spotify on a monthly basis?
Thousands, right? And we'll quickly get into the millions. And so that
Yes.
there's a difference
Yes.
between the unit economics of a song and the ability for a musician to
Yes.
continue to generate a living wage. And those are different
and
things, right?
yes, and the platform exclusivity. When you go to movies, movies are being exclusive to Hulu. It's being exclusive to Disney Plus, exclusive to Amazon, or Prime, or what do you call it, or Tubi, or what is it, Netflix or Apple,
Sure.
the exclusive. So they have
Yeah,
their own
yeah.
exclusive movies. So I thought it's funny, we had this conversation yesterday with somebody from Vamper. We were talking about it. That is the music industry future going to be end up exclusivity? If you sign to this platform, your music only will be on that platform, and that's it. It cannot be. I don't want to use the word pimped around everywhere, but is it going to be that way? Is that where the music industry going to be heading, in that direction?
I mean, I think you're asking what's missing from music. That was the original question, and I think
Yes.
what we've
Yes.
identified here is that there's a discrepancy between the way that music is delivered and consumed right now, and the value creation that needs to happen. And really, so much of that points out the fact that you're just talking about. There is more music released than is ever listened to every year, right? The
Correct.
vast majority of music is not listened to more than one time.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and so you have this problem where there's lots of music coming out and
Yeah.
it's not reaching the ears of listeners. And so
Correct.
really, in many ways, that's sort of like almost like a discovery problem. If we want songs to be listened to, and certainly the people making those songs want them to be heard, we need to do as an industry a better job of connecting those ears and those songs. And how that happens exactly from a business perspective, from a technology perspective, that's what I think we're all working on as an industry.
Well, you know what? You're going to have the solution. We're going to have to work together to find a solution.
Well,
You're the
I'll
man
say
with the
I don't think
hat.
it's I don't think it's a one size fits all problem, and I don't think there's a silver bullet, right? I've been working on this a long time, but I think that there are better improvements along every step in the chain, and that's
Yes.
what I'm really focused on is for each part of the delivery
Yes.
of the creation of the song all the way through to
Yes.
the delivery to your ears.
Yes.
There are
Yes.
improvements that we can make together.
Amazing. This interview, I could see it's going to be full of insightful things. Full. And I think our listeners and viewers going to definitely enjoy it, Michael.
Thank you.
Um, Michael, could you tell us how your music studies at UCLA influence your career in tech and music industry, especially your work with companies like Amazon, Apple, AT&T, Hulu, Pandora, Sony, and Spotify? Sorry for mentioning, but I had to. It's an impressive list.
Thank you. I've been lucky to work with a lot of great companies and a lot of companies that touch many
Yes.
millions or billions of people, and that's a fun thing. But I think at the end of the day, we're talking about my interest in ethnomusicology. That is my degree from UCLA as well. And really, at its heart, it's understanding how human beings interact with music and music culture. And when you're working with a major company like a Walmart or an Amazon, the needs that they have are the same reasons, I think, why people want to go to
Hmm.
concerts, why when they're happy or sad or at any point in their life, there's a soundtrack
Yes.
to whatever it is they're living in that moment. And so when we're working with these larger companies, usually what they're trying to do is take the cultural resonance and the feelings engendered by music and attach it
Hmm.
to their product or experience. And so whether that's helping bring music onto smart devices like TVs or smart speakers, whether that's getting music into stores, or that's
Hmm.
bringing something like a Walmart into a music product experience, that's what they're trying to do is to garner that cultural relevance and that
Hmm.
immediacy that you get from music and attach it to their brand. I think the other important piece that is often left out is sort of the cultural relevance. And so when you see something like a well known hip hop artist,
Hmm.
there's a set of cultural expectations. And with a brand, if you can attach yourselves to that culture, you're going
Hmm.
to gain brand relevance in a way that is otherwise very slow and difficult to build. But there's an immediacy with those artists who carefully cultivate their look, their feel, their sound, and is, of course, part of that genre and that cultural milieu, um, which has developed sort of organically. And so brands are looking to attach to that. And typically, what we're trying to do on the music side of things is is measure that, help them
Hmm.
do it in an authentic and meaningful way, and make sure it doesn't feel inorganic because fans pick up on that immediately. If it
Correct.
smells like it's a cheap logo slap, it
Yeah.
doesn't help the brand, it doesn't help the fans, it
No.
doesn't help the artist, and so we need to avoid that whenever we can,
It
and make
has to
sure
be
that we're.
really authentic. Yes. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
In some ways, I feel almost like there's like people working in music have a responsibility
Hmm.
to be guardians of the culture, and there are so many temptations, whether it's financially driven or otherwise, to cheapen that. And the most important thing we can do is to help it grow. And that doesn't mean that it stays static, right? Culture is always changing and evolving,
Hmm.
but it has to attach itself in a way that benefits everyone.
Well explained. You've worked with big names again, like Amazon, and startups like Lander. And how did these experiences shape your understanding of the music industry, especially in the context of AI and your role as a board member at Lander Audio Inc. and an advisor at Seven Seas Music Inc.?
Sure, sure. Great question. I think people often ask sort of what's the difference between being on a board versus working at a company.
Correct.
Um, and I've had the ability to do both in my career. Uh,
Hmm.
I think with a board member, it's a funny thing because you're helping advise, you're helping guide the company, you're helping make very critical decisions for the company, but you're
Hmm.
not there day to day. And so
No,
you're doing your best to understand the situation,
you're not on the
but you're
operation side. Yes.
that's right. And so you
Yeah.
have to approach with care. I think
Yes.
I advise a number of companies, and that's part of my day-to-day business. And really, I think of it similarly to the way a doctor takes the Hippocratic Oath, where the very first principle is do no harm.
Hmm.
And so I've, learning is often about making mistakes. I've made more mistakes than I've had successes. And so the first thing I'm trying to do, whether I'm advising a company as a board member or through pure advisory, is to help them avoid mistakes that I've made in the past.
Hmm.
And sometimes that's counseling them. Sometimes I've hopped on a plane and gone and shaken the CEO and said, "Don't do this thing. You're about to make a huge mistake." And usually at the end of the day, that's helping them avoid either a major expense or a
Hmm.
major pitfall or trap that they may not see from their current perspective. And so that's, I think, the difference between a board member and an employee is the distance that you have gives you a measure of perspective that you don't necessarily have if you're in the trenches day after day.
Interesting. At Supernova, you focus on growing users, engagement, and revenue through partnerships. And
Yeah,
partnerships is something that really extremely important. Can you explain how AI and technology are changing how creators and businesses engage with audiences, and how you've applied, for example?
sure. Well, whether it's a startup or a large organization, the reality is that you never have enough time, you never have enough people, you never have enough resources. And so I think beyond being a buzzword, it's a tool to enable you to do more. And
Hmm.
like any tool, it's critical that we know how to use it. So at Supernova, our core members are all experts in generative AI for text, for images, and increasingly for
Hmm.
sound.
Hmm.
And you can go to our website. Everything you saw there is AI generated to the point where other companies are now coming to us and saying, "Look, we know you're not artists, but we love the look of what you've built, and we want you to build something similar for us." Not something we ever
Wow.
intended to do, but it's
Hmm.
happening. And for the companies that we advise, we're using generative AI. So that could be as simple as things like Bard or ChatGPT to help
Hmm.
generate uh, content. But I think most importantly, what you're starting to see is, yeah, more and more people are starting to use AI in the workplace. There are fewer people who know how to use it well. And
Hmm.
so what we've started to do is to counsel our clients on how to use AI as a starting place, but then how to
Hmm.
tweak it with a human touch. Sometimes that's a human touch of better prompts. Sometimes that's a human touch of actually going in and editing by hand, and it's a case by case situation. But certainly with all of the clients that we're working with, we're using AI for new client development. We're using AI for outreach and customization. And I think there is probably very few areas where we're not currently using AI in some form.
Interesting. AI becoming a major important factor or tool that's being used,
Yeah.
which
And
is,
I mean,
yes,
look, I think that it's in some ways it feels like, suddenly in 2023, 2022, AI just showed up. But I can tell you as someone who's been working in technology for a very long time, this is the next step in a very, very long evolution, right? We used to call it machine learning. Before it was machine
yes,
learning, we had other terms, and I started with bag of words techniques 15 years ago and even earlier. A lot of the stuff we were talking about in the late 90s was recommendation. And at the end of the day, depending on how you're building a recommender system,
yeah.
in many ways it's related to what we now call AI. And so a lot of this is marketing applied to computer science techniques that have been around for a very, very long time and that people have already been using. They're just being exposed to it in a different way. And I think that's the changes that these tools have gone from being in the hands of experts,
Hmm.
computer engineers and scientists, to being usable by a larger swath of the population. And so much of the innovation that we're seeing now is really more in how people are accessing these tools through the user experience, the UI and the UX, versus
Hmm.
actually, some of the changes in the underlying computer science.
Interesting. Uh, you have experience in strategic partnership. That's your thing, and product marketing. Can
Yeah,
you share challenging project or partnership you've managed successfully, such as your role as a vice president of business development at Bitsky,
sure.
ByteDance, head of distribution business development for North America, or director of business development at the strategic partnerships at Pandora?
Sure, sure. So in all of those roles, what ties all of them together, I think, is
Hmm.
that focus on emerging technology. And so in those cases, I've been tasked with taking our new technology-based product, whether that's, we talked about music streaming, we were just talking about NFTs,
Yes.
AI, regardless of what it is, it's something that's new in the world. And people are curious. Other companies are curious, but at the end of the day, they have to balance that desire to try and experiment new technology with their brand reputation, with the value that they provide to their customers.
Hmm.
And so, the heart of any strategic partnership, and I teach this class at times, is how to set up that win-win relationship. In a sales relationship, you're often trying to say, you're going to give me money, and in exchange, I'll deliver a good or a service. And
Yes.
it's less clear, but it needs to be more equal. And what that means is that there needs to be a win-win. We're going to deliver our product to your users, but the benefit that your users is going to receive is so much higher. And in many cases, the value is A, hard to quantify, and B, is something that can't be bought or sold, right? That's a really direct integration between two applications. That's a really direct integration between two customer bases.
Yes.
And so that's the difference there. And what I'm often doing when I'm bringing this new technology is I'm explaining it to that other business who might not be as technology forward. They might be more conservative. And so their primary concern is, I'm excited about this, but I want to make sure that A, there's great value for my user base or my company. B, how am I going to continue to monetize off of this? And C, what are the promises and safeguards put in place to protect my brand reputation and the services that I'm providing? So I've worked a lot with telecoms, for instance, here in North
Hmm.
America. And you're asking kind of one of the fun and more challenging projects.
Yes.
While I was at TikTok at ByteDance, we
Yeah.
created the first uh, AI powered augmented reality multiplayer game. We actually have a patent, I think, that's coming out soon that you'll be able to read. But
Mm.
the idea behind that was that you and I could be in different places on our phones and we could start to play a game. So in this game, it was kind of like a drawing, painting game in an open world
Mm.
augmented reality overlay. Really, really futuristic stuff. And we brought it to a telecom. They said, this is super cool, but we're not sure our users will know exactly what to do. And so much of the partnership was around how do you explain this to get the telecom on board, right? They are not only a federally regulated entity, so they have very strict rules they have to follow. They're also such
Yes.
an important part of everyone's life, right? Your phone is in many
Hmm.
ways an extension of you at this point.
Yes.
And they have to be very
Yes.
sensitive to bringing partners in who can make sure that they're following those important guidelines. And so
I
much of
see.
a partnership like that is not just about the fun sort of consumer experience you see at the end of the day. It's about educating the businesses. How do we work together? And how do we show, both contractually and through our actions, that we are able to work with you and that we're able to follow your guidelines, especially when you have such strict rules in place to protect security and to protect the consumer experience that's so critical for communication.
Hmm. And the integrity of the brand.
Absolutely,
Yes.
right? That's
Yeah.
number one. And so you have to demonstrate that every day with all of your team. Usually there are very large teams working on these types of integrations. It can be upwards of 100, sometimes even 200 people that will touch projects like these on both sides, right? So you're talking about a very, very large group of people coming
Yeah.
together. And usually it's someone like myself who is helping manage that very large cross-functional team to make sure that everything fits together smoothly.
Yes. And for them to see the growth factor in it, the growth of the brand and the growth within the brand inside.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Given your expertise in AI music, what exciting developments do you expect in the music tech field? And how might they impact creators and listeners in the future? Considering your exclusive experience, or extensive, excuse me, not exclusive, extensive experience with companies like Pandora, ByteDance, Lander, and Seven Seas Inc., and etc.
Yeah, I think it's my strong belief that AI is already touching more areas of content creation than people
Yes,
recognize. I
yes.
think one thing to think about that we kind of often forget is it's not just the generative AI in terms of creating content. Of course, that's already happening.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that's been happening for a long time, right? Anyone who's ever listened to electronic dance music has listened to presets. They've listened to a producer
Correct.
who's hit randomize 3 times and said, wow, that sounds pretty cool, and I'm going to make a track out of it. And that's an early
Mm-hmm.
form of what we're talking about here. I think the next
Mm-hmm.
big shift is that people are going to go further and start to use generative AI via prompts to create music. And that's already started to happen. And I think we're going to see that really explode over the
It's
next
happening,
few
it's
years.
already
Yeah, it's
happening.
happening. Exactly. I
Yeah.
think people
Yeah.
are worried. And I saw a thread on social media the other day where someone said, how do musicians stand up against AI? And the answer is they're not going to. Some people will. You can go right now and get a horse and ride a horse and go to the farrier and have it shoed the way that people were doing hundreds of years ago. That's fine. And there are still people that do that, and that's wonderful. But
Mm-hmm.
most of us drive in a car and ride in an airplane. And the same thing is going to be happening for music, right? Most content creators are going to be using generative AI for most of their content creation.
Yes,
And
and
what
add their
they're
touches on
doing,
it, as you said
yeah,
earlier. Yes,
yeah, and
to do that
I
manual editing. Yeah.
right. And it's the same. Some people still edit audio tape with a razor blade, and most of us use digital audio workstations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the older methods don't go away. They still absolutely have a very valuable place. But for most people, they're going to use the newest tools. And right
Mm-hmm.
now, those newest tools are generative AI. And that's exciting. That unleashes, I think, what we're all working for, which is greater human potential and creativity. And as long as that's at the core of what we're doing, I'm not worried about it at all. I'm excited about it. And I think the other piece of it that we forget is on the listener side. And so we're going to, and we are using now, AI and other recommendation techniques we were talking about that problem of getting the right song to the right listener at the right time. That's always been core to the listening experience. And so what we're going to be doing in the future as an industry is using better recommendation techniques to improve that. And in some
Didn't
cases, those songs might
didn't
not exist until the moment that the user requests it. And as we
yes.
learn more about personalization, the user might not explicitly be requesting it, but we're using sensor information from the environment, personal
To
data
understand and
to
recommend.
generate
Yes.
and to create
Yes.
at the moment that the person needs it,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
that's really what I'm most excited about is using that sensor information to create music that fits that moment. And I think that that's what's really coming over the next few years.
I mean, the recommendation thing, it's been happening with Spotify for a while already. I remember they bought a company some years ago, and they implemented it and made it part of their services.
Sure,
The
every company
recommendation.
has
Yeah.
recommendation, but what we
Yeah.
don't really have quite yet is the creation of music for that situation in that moment. And I think that that's what's coming.
Excuse me. Are you saying that the next thing will be for the DSPs themselves will have the recommend? They will actually generate music based on the music that you listen to.
Yes, I mean, certainly Spotify and other DSPs are certainly playing around with that right now. I think it goes beyond the DSP because if there are systems to create music, why can't that be built into the smart home
Excuse me.
directly? Why do
Yeah.
I need a DSP for that particular use case? If my smart home knows that I'm walking home, if there are EEG sensors built into my earbuds that can tell how I'm doing, if I've given access to other types of personal information and I walk in the door, in the near future, we should be able to reasonably estimate how I'm doing, how I'm feeling, and what music would fit that situation. And similar to the way that we train other recommendation algorithms, that will get much better over time as it learns me, as it learns my family,
Hmm.
and it should be able to create situational music that fits the moment.
Interesting.
And when you
Um,
think about like a jazz club, when you think about those great performances that you've seen, those really intimate performances, whether that's a DJ or an artist, that's what they're doing, right? We call it reading the room. And what I think is happening is machines are learning to read the room. They're learning to read you, how you respond and react. What are the other things that are going on in the world and in our
yeah.
lives? And starting to personalize based on that information.
Mm.
And so what has been missing has been the ability to generate great music, and we are getting so much closer every day on that front.
So this gonna reshape record labels, production houses, artists, as you know. Yes, there will be still people like to go to concerts, fans of artists, visual, physical artists that go on, buy the tickets and watch. But we're still gonna reshape the whole thing. If what are you saying, that's the next thing, as far as where streaming platforms start making their own music based on just on the listeners, what kind of music they like, and just adding more to it.
Yes, yeah, I do think it will reshape the and again, that doesn't mean that traditional artist and fan relationship goes away. These things will exist side by side.
Well, there's a
And
pie. There's only a pie, and you can slice that pie to so many pieces, if you know what I mean. So, how much space will be? There's new artists coming out every day. The record labels releasing new artists, new songs, new albums, new music, and then you get the independent artists, and then you get the small labels, and you have the production houses. Now you add to that pie that you're slicing, also the platforms themselves making their own music.
yes, and
Yeah.
I don't think any of that goes away. I think the pie will continue to grow. Yes, there's a limit to the amount of music that a human being can listen to in a day. I don't think we're
Yes.
anywhere near that saturation point.
So if I'm
And
the
I,
platform, I would
yeah,
rather make music instead of paying royalties on other music that I'm gonna recommend or feed to the listeners. Then I'll make the kind of music they want. They're into jazz, they're into oldies, they're into world music, they're into bachata, they're into certain Latin sounds they love, whatever, rock, pop. So we can. But again, there's no vocals there. It's only instrumentals we're talking about. Or we're talking about also vocals with vocals.
well, I think we've all seen the ability of
Yes.
generative AI to start to clone vocals and create interesting vocals. And I should be really clear, I don't think that people are going to start listening to 100% generated music only. I mean, maybe
Hmm.
some people will prefer that, but I think at least for the foreseeable future, you're going to have a mix, right? There
Hmm.
are times when that song that I know and I love hits me so deeply and it's what I want to listen to. There's
Hmm.
other times where I'm sort of in a discovery mode and I want to listen to something new. And
Hmm.
then there are times where I'm doing a task and I need some background music. And those are times
Hmm.
where I think you're going to see generative AI shine over the next few years as the technology improves.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
what we've seen is it's annoying to like connect your speaker to Bluetooth, your phone to Bluetooth. It's annoying to have that cold start problem of what do I want to listen to right now. And so there are so many times where you might want to listen to music, but it's not very convenient to get it started. And so if we can just overcome that barrier first of, hey, here's something that we're just going to start playing, where you have the explicit ability to play it in a unprompted fashion,
Hmm.
versus having to explicitly go and turn on, whatever means you use to listen to music. That's going to unlock a huge amount of listening that doesn't really exist right now.
Hmm. Interesting. I think soon enough the new device is going to be coming up, and smartphone within time they'll be obsolete. They'll be part of the past. I'm sure. So you've
Yes.
seen some of the new technologies that being introduced. It's no longer being teased with, being introduced actually, and devices. And just my thinking will be, I think that certain platforms will have an exclusive deal with that particular carrier, by a particular device, and including in your subscription, you would be able that your I guess communication subscription, you'll be able to listen to that particular music on that platform only. I think it's gonna kind of go that route. Again, this is me, my kind of analogy of from what I've been seeing lately out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting along those lines is when you look at a catalog, um, like Amazon Music, which had this
Yes,
strategy for a number of years of taking a more limited catalog. Again, going back to the principle we were talking about, that most songs are not listened to. And
correct.
so if that's really the case, for the more casual listener, it probably makes sense to have a more limited catalog. And if that enables the company to take a smaller catalog and have a higher ROI, There's a lot of value in that. I think the other thing that we've seen is the rise of more niche or genre-specific DSPs. And so if I love a
Hmm.
certain type of
Hmm.
music, I want everything in that genre, but I don't care as much about the other stuff. I don't need that broad access. And then there are certainly other music fans who want and are willing to pay for access to everything, because they have a broader palette or they have a different set of use cases. And so I think, like I
Hmm.
said before, there's not a one size fits all, right? Music is such a universal that we need to have different tools and different catalogs for different people in different situations.
Hmm. Interesting.
But would
I
some
love.
people love that exclusive idea and be happy to pay for it? I, I think
Yes.
so. And we've seen Neil Young and Pono. We've seen other types of attempts, and I don't think that idea is going to go away. I think that's going to continue to find footing with certain listeners, and it's more of a matter of finding the right marketing, finding the right set of people, and the right set of catalog, and then matching those two things together, which is harder than it sounds, for sure. But I think the idea of exclusivity works if you have the songs and only the songs that people want. Or what we've seen in research where I've been at different companies is people, especially here in the United States, feel very comfortable subscribing to multiple video services. But because of broad catalog availability, there's a feeling that you don't need to do that for music, that you should just have one music subscription and multiple video services. And
Yeah.
if that starts to change, if people say, well, I've got, 7 different video subscriptions and I'm okay having 2 or 3 or 4 music subscriptions to get different things,
Yeah.
that might change the calculus for people as well.
Absolutely. Um, in your opinion, what is the some of the common misconceptions people have about the music tech industries?
Um, Well, I think people have lots of different ideas. I think, personally, in the more technology-oriented sphere that I work in,
Yeah.
I, I get to work with artists less, and so I'm not always hanging with Jay-Z or whomever people might associate with music these days. But a lot of it really is pretty deep technical work, and so a lot of it is really related to other types of technology, more than the artist management and artist services.
Hmm.
Basically every music company has a division that does that, and they're often, unfortunately, quite separate from the technology development. And I think there's actually a great benefit in trying to bring those two types of teams together more closely.
Together. Yes.
And really what that
Um,
stems is the difference between sort of, we call it LA versus San Francisco, but you've got the tech versus the creator side of the business. And I think there's a lot of power in trying to bring those two worlds together as much as
together.
possible.
Collaboration is often a key element in the music and tech worlds. Can you or could you share a memorable collaboration, a story, or someone you've worked with who left an impact on you?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the best examples of that, bringing Hollywood and Silicon Valley together, is someone I consider a mentor and learned so much from. His name's Ty Roberts, and he was one of the
Yes.
very first people to work on music at Apple Computer under Steve Wozniak, and then did some really groundbreaking work with David Bowie, Laurie Anderson, and others on the very first interactive CD-ROMs. So some of the first time that people have tried to bring together music and video in a digital format. I got to work with him when I was director of strategy at Grace Note, which was part of Sony at the time. And
Hmm.
what Ty showed me was how to look at a market,
Hmm.
figure out what's happening next. So the same emerging technology topics that we were talking about. And then I think the really hard part there is timing the market. If you spend a lot of time forecasting technology trends, you get
Yeah.
into a place where you're sort of ahead of the market, and you can see trends that are going to happen, but they might not be happening for like 5 years. And 5 years is a really long time in business. And if you're 5 years too early, you're
Hmm.
probably too early to be commercially successful. And so
Correct.
a lot of this is knowing what's going to happen, but really trying to figure out what's going to happen in the next 18 months, because that's something that is easier to commercialize and easier to show a return on investment, from a product development or a sales perspective. And I learned a lot about that from Ty, and others on his team like Peter DeMaria, Marcus Kramer, and others. And they showed me how important it is to get the timing right. So it's not just the idea. People think they have an idea and they're going to go off and it's going to be successful. But so much of it is meeting the market where the market is and what it's ready for.
Mhm.
And if you have an idea that's too futuristic, people are going to either call you crazy, which might be true, or they're going to say, I'm not ready for this. And generative AI is a great example where a lot of these tools and techniques have been around for a while, but the market wasn't really ready until now. And so what we're seeing now is the market meeting the technology, and that's when you really have magic happen, and you have tools and techniques that the whole world is excited about.
And it's moving fast. You have to say it. It's moving
Yeah,
fast. Not because
absolutely.
because a lot of people have been working on it for a while, but now we get to see a lot of the fruits that are coming up. They've been planting the seeds for a while.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. Um, in your line of work, how do you stay updated on the latest trends, innovation, changes in the industry, and how important for you to continue to learn?
The thing for me about emerging technology broadly and music technology specifically is that I love it. It's all I want to do most days. And so for me, sure, sometimes it feels like work, but the idea of discovering new companies, working on new problems, new things to try, it never gets old for me. And so I'm always scanning the market, whether that's things like social media, Twitter, attending conferences like Music Biz or South by Southwest.
Hmm.
I love all of it, and I love to try and learn as much as I can when possible. I'm reading research reports from organizations like Media that do a great job. And then I think the most important thing is just checking in with people. So as a partnership executive, I'm constantly calling people in my network and trying to learn. And I never turn down an introduction, especially there's just always new people coming into this space, and I think
Correct.
that everyone has something to share. So whenever I can, I'm learning from new people, meeting new people, and I think all of that helps me create mental models that, combined with the experience of things I've seen in the past, help me predict where the industry is going in the future and how my clients can slot into that future.
Amazing. You've been in this game for a long time, as you mentioned earlier, since you were 15 years old. So I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of our listeners and viewers, they're going to be extremely inspired by your story and what you've done and how do you being involved in so many things, having the time, at least in the day, to run many different things. So you basically wear too many different hats, which is amazing. I shouldn't say too many, but it's never enough, but amazing. So a lot of our listeners are going to be inspired. So, how any tips for them? People who are starting out in the business, if they decided to take your path or your kind of line of work or other, or just carve their own way or their own path in this industry. Any
Yeah, I mean,
tips,
I,
advice, please?
sure. I think, just get started, just like I was an 11-year-old kid starting to make my own database because that's what I saw was missing, right? And so when you find something, as many tools as there are out there, none of them are perfect. None of them are exactly what you might need. And so I think starting with your own needs as a musician or as a listener, and going from there. What are the pain points that I have? What do I want solved? That's always the number one place for, I think, everyone to start. You know yourself better than anyone else, if you'll admit it. And from there, you can start to develop tools. And so the startups that I've worked on and the things that I've been most proud of have all come from problems that I've had with my own listening and musical career. And I'd encourage everyone to start there and then grow from there
Do you feel there's still a lot of tools missing
every day.
currently right now, every day?
every day, every day, or problems that are unoptimized, right? Bob, you were mentioning a lot of different parts of the industry. I think in
Yeah.
every part of the industry, what you're seeing is that there's always places that can be improved, right? And that technology outpaces business quite often. It always outpaces government. It always
Yes.
outpaces regulation. And so in each of those spaces, there are improvements where the technology um, can make those processes better. A great example would be metadata. No one likes to type in metadata for their songs.
Hmm.
Let's just get that right. That's a huge thorn in the side of the industry that prevents
That
artists
nobody's
from
paying
being.
attention to,
Well,
it being
there are certainly
ignored
some
or shoved
people that do
aside.
it. There are
Yeah.
people that do it, but there's always more room for improvement, right? And
Yes.
so, how can we use something like generative AI and large language models
Hmm.
to reduce the need for human input of metadata? Great. That's a massive area with massive time and efficiency savings for all sorts of parts of the music industry. And
Hmm.
that's just one. And I think there are so many examples like that where a smart person could tackle that problem, and that's at least one company, if not many, that's delivering a
Hmm.
lot of value to multiple customers. And I see that in every part of the value chain that I look at. So I think there's a huge opportunity to continue improving this space.
Interesting. Very good. Very good advice. Um, uh, so I'm sure everybody, all of our listeners and viewers, are going to find this incredibly, incredibly insightful and helpful information. Before we wrap it up, anything that you personally, or the companies that you on board, or you work with, or you own, coming up with anything new that you want to mention, plug in, promote, so our listeners can go and watch and see, or somebody's inspired, or somebody needs help. They're a new tech startup in the music industry and they need help, they need funding, they need to reshape what they're doing, if it's the right thing, their pitch deck, and all of that.
Sure. Well, everyone's invited to go check out the Supernova website, gosupernova.xyz. I'm on LinkedIn all day, so if people want to send me a message, that's a great place to do it as well. And I think more than anything, excited about what we're going to see at South by Southwest.
Mm-hmm.
Working with a new very cool company called Voya,
Voya.
that is Voia. It's live in the App Store now, and it enables anyone to make an incredible music video right from their bedroom. And I
Hmm.
think those are the types of tools that you'll start to see more and more of, where you as a person in your home, you as a person without a lot of formal or specific training in music and content creation generally, will have the same availability and access that professionals do, right? And bringing the cost of creation, bringing the tools into the hands of more people, I think is something that is very exciting for the next few years.
Great. I have to say, this interview and conversation, Michael, been incredibly insightful. Also for me, there's so much information that you always hear it first on SoundBreaker. I'm literally going to take this and make a book out of it, because there's so much information and about the music tech and AI involvement and how it's reshaping and what's the future look like. This has been great. Great interview. This concludes today's episode of SoundBreaker. Please make sure to follow us on socials and stay tuned to our new episodes. Michael, again, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Great information. I'll talk to you soon.
Great. Thank you very much, Bob. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share the Soundbreaker podcast. And if you are joining us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.